Welcome to your Formula 1 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix preview. First of all, let's talk about what's happened throughout the week. Well, obviously, we've just had Qatar, where Max Verstappen won, where Lando Norris got a hefty penalty, which severely cost McLaren in their Constructors battle with Ferrari, and it's left a little bit open now heading into Abu Dhabi. So let's move on to Abu Dhabi then. We've had some driver movements heading into the last race, as Esteban Ocon has announced an early departure, with Jack Doohan, the Australian, stepping in to fill his seat. Jack Doohan will make his F1 debut this weekend for Alpine. The American team, Haas, is keen to get Esteban Ocon in for their post-season test in Abu Dhabi, which is only made possible by him not racing for another team in the final race. So while it might look harsh from the outside perspective that the team are dropping him, it's actually very mutual. And needless to say that Alpine would also be quite happy for Jack to have a little time in the car before heading into it full time next season. And this decision was decided only hours after the Qatar Grand Prix. That said, it could be a little bit of a risk as Alpine are fighting with Haas for 6th place in the Constructors Championship, but hopefully Jack can, put that to rest. Is it a bit of a sour way to leave? Maybe. Moving on now to Sergio Perez. While this race is the last of 2024, it might also be the last of Perez's career. The Mexican's been under so much pressure with the common knowledge now that, well, this will be his last race. Leaving the team after this weekend, the big question is, who will replace him? Franco Colapinto is now out of the picture, leaving the two RB drivers in Liam Lawson and Yuki Tsunoda. The early suggestion is that Liam Lawson will get the drive, with Ishak Hadjar from F2 filling his seat at RB, which by the way appears to be quietly being renamed to Racing Bulls next year. Moving on to the championship, it is deadline day for the Constructors Championship. That is, evidently Max has already won the drivers. Between McLaren and Ferrari. It's been decades since either of them have won a championship, and come Sunday, for one of them, the wait will be over. McLaren clearly still have the upper hand and can feel a little bit unlucky after Qatar, and while Ferrari wasn't as fast as they have been previously, they still got the all-important points. And that difference made up in Qatar has set us up for a barnstorming Yas Marina. Now we'll hand it over to Matt Koch, our F1 reporter, down live on the scene in Yas Marina at Abu Dhabi. Matt, tell us what's going on. We've got all this drama with Red Bull. Please, fill us in. What's happening down there?
Just a few days after the Qatar Grand Prix, here we are in Abu Dhabi ahead of the season finale for 2024, and the big question mark is this a finale for Sergio Perez? And all indications are, well, it probably is. We certainly get that sentiment from speaking with people at Red Bull. You don't get that sentiment if you're speaking to Sergio Perez, and that juxtaposition between those two is likely to create a little bit of tension on the back end of this event. Will Sergio Perez go quietly? Will he need to be nudged along? That's going to be the story, and that will define what happens post this event in terms of naming his replacement. It's almost certain that Liam Lawson or Yuki Tsunoda, probably Lawson, will get the drive, but all that relies on Sergio Perez leaving the team or agreeing to a package. There's ambassadorial roles and all sorts of things being floated. He needs to agree to that in the first instance, and then we can move on to the next step. That could take a little while because lawyers need to be involved, and as soon as you start to introduce the law into these things, it tends to extend. So while we expect a decision to be made quite quickly, potentially as quickly as Monday, given the discussions that are expected to be had immediately after the event, an actual decision isn't expected realistically much before Christmas.
Thank you very much, my friend. It is time now we move on to our favourite Aussie section. Well, I thought Oscar Piastri would do really well in Qatar. Well, in hindsight, third was probably the best he could have done on that weekend. Having said that though, the Ferrari being in front of him was a little bit of a shock. Yes, the McLarens had the pace, but track position is oh so important in Lausanne. And after the safety car, that caught Oscar out. Still, he did win the sprint thanks to Lando Norris returning the favour of Brazil, and that was a really nice moment of sporting respect between the two McLaren drivers who have been not only battling, but helping each other out throughout the season. Evidently with Oscar trying to support Lando's title fight, and Lando of course giving Oscar the win back in Hungary. Now talking about those Red Bull drivers and who's fighting for that seat next to Max Verstappen, Liam Lawson actually had a little bit of a shocker. An early spin and a gamble on tyres left him the last runner on the lead lap. Sure, his pace after the spin was pretty decent and he wasn't far off Tsunoda in the end, but that RB just doesn't have the pace, or didn't. With Haas and Alpine actually scoring some decent points now, it's going to be a pretty tough ask to advance from 8th place in the championship. But I don't think that will matter all that much, as Liam Lawson, meanwhile, is probably going to be moving on next season, with strong suggestions saying that he will be driving in the Red Bull next year with Max Verstappen. But hey, we'll see how things unfold. And speaking of how things will unfold, let's talk about our predictions for this weekend. First of all, who do I think is going to win the Grand Prix? I think it's going to be Max Verstappen. Seal the championship the way he knows best on the top step. And Matt has gone for much the same. Max Verstappen to win is our prediction. Next, I think that we'll see George Russell in P2 with Lando Norris in P3, whereas Matt thinks Lando Norris in P2 with George Russell in P3. I'd love to see Oscar up there, but I'm going to be completely unbiased here. I don't think he'll be making the podium. Here are our predictions, and let us know yours in the comments down below. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's and the last of the season F1 preview as we head into the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. And I just want to say it has been a cracking season, and I very much look forward to what comes next. Thanks for watching this F1 preview brought to you by the Ford F-150.
America's favorite truck is here. The Ford F-150. Go big.